Okay, the engine is all put back together. I'm just working on, just finished putting in gauges and pipes and things like that, wires, lots of pipes and fittings. I just like to give some quick advice when rebuilding your engine. This is extremely important, and this is actually how a type of wasp can actually destroy an engine. You might be thinking, well, how the hell is that possible? And I'll explain to you. So right here, as you can see, there's these two holes and they have fittings. I'm not sure. I think the other one is for the PCV valve, which sucks in exhaust gases from the crankcase inside the engine and filters and sends them back to the combustion chamber. And I think the other one would have been for wiper motor. But in the case of this engine, I have a double unit fuel pump, which is a fuel pump with a vacuum pump for the windshield wipers. That's to prevent the wipers from slowing down when the engine has a low vacuum. So I think this port is basically useless right now, but it's actually really useful for putting a gauge in, a vacuum gauge in. So that tells me how well the engine is running and the tuning, and there's a lot of information you can get from a vacuum gauge. But anyways, these fittings here, this one is a replacement, nice brass. Make sure you put brass fittings. You can see I put all stainless, pretty much all stainless hardware in this engine, so I will never have to worry about seized up bolts or nuts, things like that. So everything is stainless or brass, or a few odd fittings that are brass. But the reason one of these fittings could destroy your engine is because when I actually opened one of these up, and even on the flathead, there was a bunch of dirt and sand inside these fittings. And I think what happens is, the cars sit for decades, and there's these kind of wasps or beetles or bugs, and they make little nests inside the fittings. And they make those nests out of dirt and possibly little stones or sand. And all it takes to cause some damage to a cylinder wall is a grain of sand. So make sure you either replace those fittings or at least blow them out with the air gun. So that's one tip I have for you if anybody's rebuilding an engine. That's one tip. The other advice I can give you guys is go with stainless or brass or something that will not get rust on it. Something that will not rust, because that's my opinion. It'll save a lot of pain in the ass and hassle in the future. And it really makes the engine look nice as well. And trust me, things rust quickly, at least, especially here where I live. There's salt in the winter. They throw salt on the streets. So, like I said, I do drive this car during the winter. So, it will rust really quickly if they're not stainless. If it's stainless, you put it once, you forget about it. You don't have to worry about it ever again. So, to me, that's awesome. Same for brass. It's very, very frustrating if those fittings or a bolt or something breaks inside the engine. And finally, the third tip that I have is down there on the engine, on the main gallery, there's these plugs. As you can see, I've already removed them, but here's how I had to remove them. Stuff everywhere. That's how I removed one of them. There's a plug there. And that's how I removed the other one. Not fun. Not fun at all. Now, unfortunately, I forgot to do this before installing the engine in the car. So it wasn't a nice position to weld in, but fortunately I still got these stupid nuts off, and they're pretty intact. The threads on them are very intact. But these little plugs, they're very, very badly designed. I'd like to find whoever designed these things and put them in the engine and chop their head off, because I'll explain to you shortly. But before doing so, just remember, this is my third tip, third word of advice for you. Remember to take the plugs out if you're installing gauges and things like that. Remember to take plugs and bolts out before putting the engine back in the car, because if it makes everything easier. If it breaks or if it's broken, then you can weld or you can drill it out. But once it's in the car, you don't have a lot of space, and there's no way in hell I could get a drill in here. Maybe an angle drill, but that would take forever. So that's my third word piece of advice. Everything that has to be removed, do so before putting the engine back in the car. Not much else I can say. I actually applied this magic stuff here, Best Line engine treatment, on the pistons, the cylinders, cylinder walls, and on every other moving part in this engine. So I did this because I've seen the reviews and the testing of this thing on YouTube, and it's just insane what this does. It just eliminates it eliminates friction. So I'm using this as maybe a break-in oil, although I do have the actual break-in oil as well, so I'm not sure if I should use both or just use one. This stuff should be much better than the normal additive that people normally use, but I guess the main thing is applying these things. And I also applied normal assembly lube as well, by the way. So I just want to ensure that this engine lasts forever, and that's sort of my goal. So anything and everything that removes friction, I want it. And this is supposed to be the best stuff here. The engine additive, the brake-in oil. So these are the three products that I've used. There's assembly lube, Lucas. There's also this thing here. We'll probably talk about this in another video. I guess this is sort of my fourth tip. Remember to add something that removes friction. That's apparently that's vital. So that's what I used here. What else can I say? I feel like I'm forgetting something once again. So that's that. Same idea for anti-rust on these lines. So if you watch my previous video, my other video on explaining the lubrication circuit in this engine, what happens is the oil comes out of the main gallery here, and it's supposed to go through the pipe up into the valves here. So this pipe here is fundamental. If you just decide to take this fitting off and put a plug in there, then you're into some big trouble. So these lines, as you can hopefully see, they're kind of copperish in color because they are cupronickel lines, and they're the same as brake lines. They're just lines. That's what they're sold. Coronavirus. That's what they're sold as at Rock Auto. Either brake lines or just hydraulic lines, something like that. So once again, just if you're gonna do it, I'd like to do things right, so that's why I'm going with the copper nickel, just to make sure it does not rust. And I guess that's pretty much it. One more thing. Remember to put anti-seize on everything, including the spark plugs. I'd really hate for a spark plug to break up in there, or just to seize up in there. That would be, oh man, that would be a pain in the asshole. Not even in the ass, just pain in the asshole. That would be horrible. So just make sure to put the anti-seize in. Don't just tighten it by hand. I actually use a torque wrench to make sure I get the right torque, which in this case is 25 to 30 foot-pounds if I'm not mistaken, or 20 to 25. I think 20 to 25. So I guess that's the last tip. I've painted everything, so everything is looking much nicer and cleaner than it did before. Yeah, I closed up the engine, the holes. There were a few holes in the engine bay. Anyways, I'm drifting away here, so I guess that's pretty much it.